I stared at a crumpled $26,000 invoice on my kitchen counter while Christmas music played from my neighbor's apartment. The bill showed my sister Amanda's car loan details with my name listed as cosigner. My phone buzzed with missed calls from my parents, Bob and Patricia, but I remembered sitting alone on Christmas Day, watching Netflix while my entire extended family celebrated 3 miles away without me. The irony cut deep. Too toxic for their holiday, but perfect for their debt. Let me back up and explain how I got into this mess. My name is Ricardo, and I'm 28 years old. I work as an electrical contractor here in Phoenix, pulling down decent money, wiring new construction sites, and fixing commercial buildings. 3 years ago, my sister Amanda came to me with tears in her eyes, begging me to co-sign for a Honda Civic because her credit was shot from maxed-out store cards and missed phone payments. Amanda has always been the golden child in our family. She's 26 now, but since we were kids, everything revolved around making Amanda happy. When she wanted dance lessons, my parents scraped together money for private coaching. When I wanted to join Little League, they said we couldn't afford it. Amanda got a brand new laptop for high school graduation while I got a $20 gift card to Target. The pattern continued into adulthood. My parents paid Amanda's full tuition at Arizona State University, where she majored in communications and partied for 4 years. Meanwhile, I worked nights at a warehouse to afford community college courses in electrical technology. When Amanda graduated and couldn't find work, they bought her a studio apartment downtown and covered her rent for 8 months. When I finished my certification program and landed my first contractor job, they asked me to chip in for Amanda's security deposit on a bigger place. I always said yes because I wanted to keep the peace. Family harmony seemed worth the financial sacrifice, even when my bank account suffered. My parents, Bob and Patricia, would give me these speeches about being the reliable son, the one they could count on, the one who had his life together. It felt good to be appreciated, even if the appreciation came with a price tag. So when Amanda showed up that Tuesday evening 3 years ago, mascara running down her cheeks, talking about how she desperately needed transportation to get to her retail job at the mall, I caved. She promised she would handle every single payment, never miss a month, and pay the loan off early to protect my credit score. The Honda cost $26,000 after taxes and fees, financed at 6.9% interest over 5 years. For the first year, Amanda actually kept her word. The bank never contacted me, and I assumed everything was running smoothly. Amanda would text me monthly updates about her payments, sometimes including screenshots that showed money leaving her account for the car loan. She seemed genuinely grateful and responsible, but over the past 6 months, I started getting occasional calls from the bank. Automated messages about payment reminders, then live representatives asking if I knew my cosigner was running behind. Each time, I would call Amanda, and she would explain some temporary setback. Her hours got cut at work. She had an emergency dental procedure. Her roommate moved out unexpectedly. Always some crisis that would be resolved next month. I should have paid closer attention, but I was busy with my own life. Work was booming. I was dating an amazing woman named Stephanie, and I trusted Amanda had learned to be more responsible. The biggest red flag I missed was when she started posting photos on social media of expensive dinners and weekend trips while claiming she was broke. The climactic revelation hit me like a sledgehammer when I called my cousin Jake to wish him a Happy New Year. During our conversation, Jake mentioned how generous I was to voluntarily cover Amanda's car payments because I made so much money and didn't need it. He said Amanda had been collecting donations from relatives to help Ricardo with his generosity because everyone admired how I was supporting my sister's independence. Amanda had been telling the entire family that I was willingly paying her car loan as a gift while simultaneously collecting money from aunts, uncles, and cousins who thought they were contributing to my charitable gesture. She had turned my co-signing into a profit center, making money off my reputation while destroying my credit behind my back. The Christmas exclusion started making sense once I began connecting the dots. 2 weeks before the holiday, I had called my mother, Patricia, to ask about dinner plans and what I should bring. She acted strangely evasive, giving vague answers about still working out the details and, well, let you know. This was bizarre because Christmas planning in our family typically started right after Thanksgiving. Patricia loved hosting elaborate celebrations with precise seating charts, coordinated side dishes, and color-themed decorations. The fact that she was being secretive raised immediate red flags. I noticed Amanda posting Instagram stories about Christmas shopping with my mother, the two of them picking out centerpieces and discussing menu options. Every photo showed them laughing and having what looked like serious planning conversations. Not one image included any reference to my participation in the upcoming festivities. Something felt wrong, so I decided to call my Aunt Carol, Patricia's sister, who had never missed a family Christmas in 30 years. Carol sounded uncomfortable when I mentioned the upcoming dinner, stumbling over her words before finally admitting there had been a family meeting I wasn't invited to. According to Carol, Amanda had told everyone that I said their Christmas traditions were boring and beneath me. She claimed I had called the family gatherings juvenile and a waste of time for successful people. Even worse, Amanda told them I was planning to bring Stephanie and spend the entire evening judging everyone's presents and criticizing their cooking. Amanda had painted me as an arrogant snob who looked down on the family now that I had a steady career. She told them I complained constantly about having to spend money on family gifts and that I would rather spend Christmas at some fancy restaurant with my girlfriend than celebrate with relatives who couldn't afford nice things. None of this was remotely true. I loved our family Christmas traditions. Some of my best childhood memories involved helping my grandmother make tamales on Christmas Eve and playing board games with my cousins while the adults watched football. I had been looking forward to introducing Stephanie to the family properly, not to show off, but because I genuinely wanted her to experience the warmth and chaos of our holiday celebrations. When I tried to call my parents to clarify these accusations, they responded with cold, clipped conversations. Bob accused me of stirring up drama and trying to make Amanda look bad. Patricia suggested I had changed since getting my contractor's license and started making good money. They both seemed convinced that I had become selfish and materialistic. The more I protested my innocence, the more defensive they became. Amanda had done such a thorough job poisoning them against me that my attempts to defend myself only confirmed their suspicions about my supposed arrogance. Christmas morning was devastating. I drove past my parents' house around noon and counted 23 cars parked along the street and in their driveway. The entire extended family was there. Aunts, uncles, cousins, family friends, even neighbors I had known since childhood. Through the large front window, I could see people laughing around the dining room table, children running through the living room, and Amanda holding court in the center of it all. My cousin Jake spotted me sitting in my truck across the street. He looked genuinely guilty, walking to the window and giving me an awkward wave. His expression told me everything I needed to know about how bad this situation had become. Even Jake, who had always been like a brother to me, believed whatever story Amanda had fabricated. I spent Christmas Day alone in my apartment, ordering Chinese takeout and wondering what I had done to deserve this treatment. The loneliness was crushing, but the confusion was worse. I kept replaying every recent conversation with my family, trying to identify where I had gone wrong or said something that could have been misinterpreted as snobbery. The climactic twist came 3 days after Christmas when my neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, knocked on my door with a concerned expression. She's a retired teacher who lives in the duplex next to my parents' house and has known our family for 15 years. Mrs. Henderson told me she had seen Amanda and a tall man with dark hair loading expensive items from my parents' house into Amanda's Honda on Christmas Eve. They made multiple trips, carrying out what looked like electronics, jewelry boxes, and several wrapped presents. The man matched the description of Derek, Amanda's new boyfriend who supposedly worked in finance but had been mysteriously unemployed for months. Mrs. Henderson said the loading process took over an hour and looked more like a planned operation than casual gift-giving. Amanda and Derek seemed focused and systematic, checking items off a list and carefully arranging everything in the car to maximize space. When my father, Bob, came outside to help them, he looked uncomfortable and kept glancing around nervously. This revelation changed everything. Amanda hadn't just excluded me from Christmas. She had used the holiday as an opportunity to essentially rob my parents while I was isolated and unable to witness or interfere. The boyfriend I had never been allowed to meet was clearly involved in some kind of scheme that went far beyond missed car payments. January 3rd hit me like a freight train. I had been in Tucson for 5 days, working on a commercial wiring project, staying in a cheap motel, and putting in 12-hour days to finish ahead of schedule. The overtime pay was excellent, and I was feeling optimistic about starting the new year with a strong financial foundation. Walking into my apartment that evening, I immediately noticed the stack of mail that had accumulated while I was away. Among the usual bills and advertisements was a thick envelope from First National Bank with urgent, legal notice stamped in red letters across the front. Inside was an invoice that made my blood run cold. $26,347.18. The document detailed 3 months of missed car payments, late fees compounding at 18% annually, and acceleration of the entire loan balance due to default. A highlighted section warned that repossession would proceed within 10 business days unless full payment was received. My phone showed 17 missed calls, 12 voicemails, and 31 text messages from various family members and the bank's collection department. The voicemails progressively increased in urgency, starting with polite payment reminders and escalating to threats of legal action against my credit and potential wage garnishment. When I checked my credit score through the banking app, my stomach dropped. It had fallen from 742 to 681 in just 3 months. Years of careful financial management had been destroyed by my sister's irresponsibility, and I hadn't even known it was happening. I called Amanda immediately, and she answered on the first ring with a defensive tone that told me she had been expecting this conversation. Instead of apologizing or explaining the situation, she immediately went on the offensive, claiming she was having a rough time and thought I was handling the payments since I was the primary cosigner. This was complete nonsense. Cosigners are backup guarantors, not primary payers. Amanda was legally responsible for the monthly payments, and she knew it. When I pressed her for specifics about why she stopped paying, her story fell apart within minutes. She claimed her work hours had been cut dramatically, but I knew from her social media posts that she was still working full-time at the department store. She said she had unexpected medical expenses, but Instagram showed her getting expensive highlights and manicures throughout December. Most tellingly, she mentioned that Derek had convinced her to skip payments to teach me a lesson about family loyalty. This admission revealed the true scope of her manipulation. Amanda's boyfriend had coached her to sabotage my credit as punishment for some perceived slight. When I asked what lesson I supposedly needed to learn, Amanda's answer was devastating. She believed I had abandoned the family by becoming successful and not sharing enough of my income with relatives who were struggling. The phone call with my parents was even worse. Bob and Patricia were furious with me for letting this happen and allowing Amanda's financial crisis to escalate without intervention. They had somehow convinced themselves that as the co-signer, I was responsible for monitoring Amanda's payments and covering any shortfalls automatically. When I explained that co-signing meant I was a backup guarantor, not a voluntary bill payer, Patricia accused me of trying to weasel out of my obligations and abandoning my sister in her time of need. Bob threatened to cut off contact entirely if I didn't step up and be a man by covering the full balance immediately. The most shocking revelation came when they admitted Amanda had told them I promised to take care of the car situation as a Christmas present to her. According to their version of events, I had specifically assured them that Amanda would never have to worry about car payments because I was wealthy enough to handle the financial responsibility myself. This was another complete fabrication. I had never made such a promise, and I wasn't wealthy by any reasonable standard. I lived in a modest one-bedroom apartment, drove a 10-year-old pickup truck, and saved every dollar possible for future home ownership and retirement. The idea that I was secretly rich and hiding money from my struggling family was pure fantasy. The climactic twist that sent me into a rage came when I started digging deeper into Amanda's recent financial activities. Using online banking tools and credit monitoring services, I discovered she had used the Honda as collateral for a personal loan with a predatory lender called Quick Cash Solutions. Amanda had borrowed $8,000 against the car's value to fund a vacation to Hawaii with Derek over New Year's week. While claiming she couldn't afford Christmas gifts or car payments, she had been posting photos from luxury resorts in Maui, expensive dinners on the beach, and helicopter tours over volcanoes. The predatory loan carried a 39% annual interest rate and a balloon payment due in 6 months. If Amanda couldn't pay the full balance by July, Quick Cash Solutions would claim ownership of the Honda, leaving me responsible for $26,000 on a car I would never see again. Derek and Amanda had essentially stolen $8,000, using my credit as leverage while simultaneously destroying my financial reputation and isolating me from family support. The vacation photos showed them laughing and celebrating while my credit score collapsed and my relationships with relatives disintegrated. The scope of their betrayal was breathtaking. They had turned my willingness to help family into a weapon against me, using my good nature and credit history to fund their lifestyle while painting me as the villain in a drama they had created entirely through lies and manipulation. My investigation into Amanda's financial web revealed a level of manipulation that shocked even me. Armed with a newfound determination to understand the full scope of her deception, I started making phone calls to relatives who had been acting strangely distant since before Christmas. Uncle Tommy, my father's brother, was the first to reveal the truth. When I called him directly and asked why he seemed uncomfortable around me lately, he reluctantly admitted that Amanda had approached him in November, asking for $1,500. She claimed the money was for Ricardo's birthday gift because she wanted to buy me something special to show her appreciation for all my financial support. Tommy had written the check willingly, believing he was contributing to a thoughtful gesture from a grateful sister. Amanda promised the gift would be presented at Christmas dinner with acknowledgement of Tommy's contribution. Of course, no gift ever materialized, no birthday celebration occurred, and Tommy had been wondering for weeks why I never thanked him for his generosity. Cousin Jake's story was even more disturbing. Amanda had borrowed $3,000 from him in early December, claiming she needed Ricardo's approval of Derek before introducing him to the family. According to Amanda's lies, I had demanded she pay for an expensive background check and psychological evaluation before I would accept Derek as her boyfriend. Jake, who looked up to me as the successful member of our generation, thought this was reasonable caution from a protective older brother. He gave Amanda the money, believing it would help secure family harmony and ensure Derek was worthy of our golden child. Instead, Amanda and Derek had used the cash for their Hawaii vacation planning. The manipulation extended throughout our extended family network. Aunt Rosa had given Amanda $500 for emergency car repairs that Amanda claimed I had already approved and would rematch. Cousin Maria contributed $800 toward Amanda's job training program that I had supposedly recommended and agreed to partially fund. In every case, Amanda had used my name and reputation as leverage to extract money from relatives who respected my work ethic and financial responsibility. She had convinced everyone that I was orchestrating these financial transactions as part of my generous support for her personal growth and stability. The most heartbreaking discovery came from my grandmother, Elena, who is 83 years old and lives on a fixed Social Security income. Amanda had visited Elena in early December, crying about how I was demanding she pay rent to continue living in our apartment because I was being audited by the IRS and needed to show separate finances. Elena, who had already given Amanda her Christmas shopping money to help Ricardo with his tax troubles, was worried sick about my supposed legal problems. She had been praying for me every night and considering selling her wedding ring to contribute more money to resolve my imaginary IRS crisis. When I called Elena to explain that I wasn't being audited and had never demanded rent from Amanda, my grandmother broke down, sobbing with relief. She had been losing sleep for weeks, terrified that her successful grandson was facing financial ruin and too proud to ask for help directly. The scope of Amanda's lies was staggering. She had created an entire fictional narrative where I was simultaneously wealthy enough to support her lifestyle and financially distressed enough to need emergency family assistance. Depending on the situation and the target, I was either a generous benefactor or a victim requiring rescue. During this investigation, I finally got the truth from my parents about their own financial situation. Patricia eventually admitted they knew about some of Amanda's lies, but hoped the situation would work itself out without confrontation. They had been enabling her behavior for so long that they genuinely couldn't distinguish between her legitimate needs and her manipulative schemes. Bob revealed that they had taken a second mortgage on their house last year to pay off Amanda's credit card debt, which totaled $18,000 at the time. They had refinanced their home, extending their mortgage by 15 years and increasing their monthly payments significantly, all to bail out Amanda's shopping addiction and poor financial decisions. The devastating truth was that my parents were now 3 months behind on their own mortgage payments because they couldn't afford the increased costs of the second mortgage combined with their regular expenses. They were facing foreclosure within 6 months if they couldn't catch up on payments, but they hadn't told anyone because they were embarrassed about their financial mismanagement. Patricia broke down completely when she confessed they couldn't help with Amanda's car situation because they were struggling to keep their own home. The family financial foundation I thought was solid was actually crumbling, and Amanda's latest crisis was just one more weight on an already collapsing structure. The climactic twist that pushed me toward decisive action came when I discovered Amanda's total debt load. Through careful questioning and some online investigation, I learned she owed $22,000 across 8 different credit cards, had borrowed $12,000 from predatory lenders like Quick Cash Solutions, and owed money to 6 family members totaling nearly $8,000. Amanda wasn't just financially irresponsible. She was running a sophisticated fraud operation that targeted the people who loved her most. Derek wasn't just an unemployed boyfriend. He was a partner in systematic family exploitation who had been coaching Amanda on manipulation tactics since they started dating 6 months ago. The revelation that Derek had been encouraging Amanda to declare bankruptcy and stick Ricardo with the bill was the final piece of evidence I needed. They weren't planning to resolve this crisis. They were planning to disappear and leave me holding the financial wreckage of their selfish decisions. Derek's true nature became clear when the legal pressure campaign began in earnest. 2 days after my confrontation with Amanda about the Hawaii vacation, I received a phone call from my mother that made my blood boil. Patricia had been recruited by Amanda and Derek to deliver a guilt trip speech about family loyalty and supporting each other through difficult times. Patricia's call was clearly scripted. She used phrases that didn't match her normal speaking patterns, referring to fiscal responsibility and contractual obligations in ways that sounded like legal terminology someone else had coached her to use. When I pressed her about where these ideas were coming from, she admitted Derek had been helping the family understand the legal situation. This was the first sign that Derek was actively manipulating my parents. using his supposed finance background to convince them that I was legally required to pay Amanda's debts regardless of her behavior. According to Derek's interpretation, cosigning created an automatic obligation that superseded any personal relationship considerations. Bob's follow-up call was even more disturbing. He threatened to disown me if I didn't step up and be a man by covering Amanda's car payments immediately. This language was completely unlike my father, who had never used ultimatums or questioned my masculinity in previous disagreements. The phrasing sounded coached, rehearsed, and designed to trigger shame and compliance. Over the next week, I received calls from extended family members who had been fed a carefully constructed narrative about my supposed selfishness. Aunt Carol, who had always been supportive of my goals, accused me of trying to ruin Amanda's life by being inflexible about payment arrangements. Uncle Tommy suggested I was forgetting where I came from and getting too big for my boots. Each conversation followed the same pattern. Relatives would start with gentle persuasion, escalate to moral lectures about family obligation, and conclude with warnings about the consequences of my selfishness. Someone was clearly coordinating these calls and providing talking points designed to pressure me into submission. The manipulation reached a new level when Amanda created a completely fictional sob story about being a single mother struggling to provide for her children. She started posting social media updates about doing everything for my babies and working 3 jobs to make ends meet. Multiple relatives called to express sympathy for Amanda's brave struggle as a single parent. Amanda has never been pregnant, never been married, and doesn't have any children. The entire single mother narrative was pure fabrication, designed to generate sympathy and financial support from relatives who didn't know better. She was using one of society's most emotionally powerful stories to manipulate people into giving her money. Derek coached Amanda to escalate the emotional manipulation by threatening suicide if I didn't pay the car loan. She called me crying hysterically, claiming she couldn't handle the stress and might do something drastic if the repo truck showed up. This was psychological terrorism designed to make me feel responsible for her mental health and safety. The legal intimidation began when a threatening letter arrived from something called Fairfield and Associates Legal Services. The letter demanded immediate payment of the car loan, plus additional fees for emotional damages and breach of contractual obligations. According to their claims, I had promised to pay the loan and backing out constituted actionable fraud. The letter threatened to sue me for the full amount plus legal fees, court costs, and punitive damages that could total over $40,000. They claimed to have documented evidence of my promise to pay and warned that fighting their legitimate claim would only increase the final judgment against me. This legal threat was clearly bogus. Real attorneys don't demand payment for emotional damages related to car loans, and breach of contract requires an actual contract with specific terms. But the letter looked official enough to scare someone without legal knowledge into immediate compliance. The harassment campaign intensified when Amanda and Derek started showing up at my work sites. They appeared at a commercial building project in downtown Phoenix, causing a scene in front of my crew and supervisor. Amanda screamed about family loyalty, while Derek acted threatening and demanded to speak privately about resolving this situation. My supervisor pulled me aside afterward to ask if I was having personal problems that might affect my work performance. The last thing I needed was my professional reputation being damaged by Amanda's drama, but Derek seemed determined to invade every aspect of my life until I capitulated to their demands. Derek's threatening behavior escalated during their worksite visit. He followed me to my truck after the shift ended, blocking my path and suggesting that I was making a big mistake by not taking care of family business. His language was carefully chosen to sound menacing without crossing into clear criminal threat territory. The climactic twist that revealed Derek's true nature came through my girlfriend, Stephanie. She approached me nervously one evening, showing me a series of Instagram messages Derek had sent her over the past week. He had been systematically trying to convince her that I was financially irresponsible and suggesting she should leave me before my money problems dragged her down. Derek's messages to Stephanie were sophisticated psychological manipulation. He portrayed himself as a concerned friend, trying to warn her about my pattern of making promises I couldn't keep, and my tendency to use people for financial gain, then abandon them when things got difficult. He suggested that my family problems revealed my true character, and that she should get out before it gets worse. The messages included fabricated details about my supposed financial troubles, claiming I was heavily in debt and hiding money problems from everyone who cared about me. Derek tried to convince Stephanie that my anger about Amanda's car payments was actually projection, deflecting attention from my own financial irresponsibility. This revelation showed that Derek wasn't just targeting my family for money. He was systematically trying to destroy my entire support system. By isolating me from Stephanie, he would eliminate my strongest source of emotional support and leave me more vulnerable to family pressure. His strategy was comprehensive and calculated, designed to break down my resistance through social isolation and emotional manipulation. Derek's campaign against Stephanie also revealed his long-term planning. He wasn't just focused on getting money for Amanda's current crisis. He was working to position himself as the family's financial advisor and decision-maker. By discrediting me with my girlfriend and extended family, he could establish himself as the responsible adult who would manage everyone's finances going forward. The scope of Derek's manipulation was breathtaking. He had identified our family's dynamics, targeted our emotional vulnerabilities, and crafted a systematic plan to extract maximum money while destroying my relationships and reputation. This wasn't just boyfriend support for Amanda's poor decisions. It was professional-level fraud being executed by someone with significant experience in these tactics. The turning point came when I decided to stop being reactive and start investigating Derek systematically. Instead of just defending myself against his accusations and manipulation, I hired a private investigator named Sarah Chen who specialized in financial fraud and family exploitation cases. Sarah's background research revealed that Derek's real name was Derek Michael Thompson, and he had significantly more history than anyone in my family realized. His supposed finance background was partially true, but not in the way he presented it. Derek had worked for a predatory lending company in Las Vegas before being fired for embezzling client funds and falsifying loan applications. The investigation uncovered that Derek had used at least 3 different aliases over the past 5 years: Derek Thompson, Michael Derek Thompson, and Derek Michael Stevens. Each identity came with fabricated employment history and references that looked legitimate on surface inspection but fell apart under scrutiny. Most shocking was the discovery that Derek was currently wanted for fraud in Nevada, where he had disappeared after convincing an elderly woman to mortgage her house and give him the proceeds for a fake investment opportunity. The victim, a 78-year-old widow named Margaret Foster, had lost $130,000 and was now facing foreclosure on the home she had owned for 40 years. Derek's pattern was consistent across multiple states. He would target families with complex financial dynamics, identify the most vulnerable or generous members, and systematically exploit their relationships for financial gain. He specialized in situations where family loyalty could be weaponized against successful relatives who had money to steal. Sarah also discovered that Derek wasn't working alone. He had connections to a network of similar fraudsters who shared information about targets and techniques through encrypted messaging apps and dark web forums. They called themselves family farmers because they cultivated long-term relationships within family systems to maximize extraction over time. While Sarah conducted her investigation, I started secretly recording my conversations with Amanda using a voice recording app on my phone. Arizona is a one-party consent state, meaning I could legally record conversations as long as I was a participant. The recordings I collected over 2 weeks were devastating evidence of the fraud scheme. In one recorded call, Amanda admitted that Derek had coached her on which lies to tell different family members to maximize financial extraction. She laughed about how easy it was to manipulate relatives who still saw her as the little princess who could do no wrong. She specifically mentioned targeting elderly family members because they were soft touches who would believe emotional stories. Another recording captured Amanda explaining how Derek had researched my income and credit history online to develop their targeting strategy. They knew exactly how much money I made, how much debt I could theoretically afford, and which psychological pressure points would be most effective in breaking down my resistance. The most damaging recording came when Amanda called me drunk one evening, bragging about how Derek had taught her to play the victim game by threatening suicide and claiming mental health crises. She revealed that Derek had specific scripts for different manipulation techniques, including fake medical emergencies, fabricated threats from creditors, and staged emotional breakdowns. During this investigation period, I consulted with a real attorney named Michael Rodriguez, who specialized in consumer protection and fraud cases. His analysis of the threatening letter from Fairfield and Associates Legal Services revealed it was completely fraudulent. The company wasn't registered in Arizona, the attorney names were fake, and the legal claims were nonsensical. Michael explained that Derek had likely created the fake law firm using online templates and legal-sounding language designed to intimidate people without actual legal knowledge. This was a common tactic among fraud artists who relied on victims being too scared or embarrassed to verify the legitimacy of legal threats. The bank investigation I requested also yielded important information. When I provided evidence that Amanda had fraudulently used the car as collateral for the predatory loan, the bank's fraud department began their own investigation into the transaction. They discovered that Derek had posed as my authorized representative when dealing with Quick Cash Solutions, forging documents that claimed I had approved the collateral arrangement. During this period, I also reached out to Derek's previous victims through social media and online fraud reporting sites. I found 3 other families who had experienced similar manipulation tactics, all involving Derek targeting successful family members through relationships with vulnerable siblings or relatives. One victim, a woman named Jennifer Walsh in Colorado, told me Derek had convinced her sister to rack up enormous credit card debt while claiming Jennifer was secretly supporting her lifestyle. The sister would show expensive purchases to friends while claiming Jennifer was paying for everything as penance for family abandonment issues. Derek disappeared with $8,000 in cash after the family discovered the truth. The most crucial discovery came when I set up a sting operation with my cousin Jake, who felt genuinely guilty about believing Amanda's lies and wanted to help expose Derek's fraud. Jake agreed to approach Derek with a fictional story about having access to his grandfather's life insurance money and being willing to invest it through Derek's supposed financial expertise. Derek took the bait immediately, presenting Jake with fake investment documents and promising enormous returns on a family investment opportunity that would help everyone achieve financial independence. The documents Derek provided were clearly fraudulent, featuring impossible return rates and investment strategies that made no legal or financial sense. The climactic twist that sealed Derek's fate came when Sarah's investigation uncovered his most serious secret. Derek was already married to another woman in Arizona named Christina Martinez, and he had been running the exact same scam on her family for the past 8 months. Christina had been looking for Derek for 6 months after he disappeared with her family's life savings, totaling $24,000. Her family had filed a police report, but Derek had covered his tracks carefully and changed his appearance significantly since fleeing Arizona. Christina's sister had also been manipulated into believing she was supporting her successful brother's generosity when Derek was actually stealing from everyone. When Sarah showed me photos of Derek with Christina's family, everything clicked into place. Derek's relationship with Amanda was just the latest version of a scam he had been perfecting for years. He would identify families with generous, successful members, cultivate a romantic relationship with a vulnerable family member, then systematically extract money while destroying internal family relationships to prevent coordinated resistance. The revelation that Derek was already married also explained why he had been so careful to avoid meeting extended family members and why he always found excuses to skip family gatherings. He was managing multiple fraudulent relationships simultaneously and couldn't risk exposure by appearing in family photos or developing relationships with people who might recognize him from other contexts. Armed with this comprehensive evidence, I finally had the tools I needed to expose Derek's fraud and protect my family from further manipulation. The investigation had revealed not just individual lies, but an entire criminal enterprise that had been targeting families across multiple states for years. The moment of reckoning arrived on a cold Tuesday morning in February. I had compiled all my evidence, consulted with my attorney, and prepared for the nuclear option that would end this nightmare once and for all. At 8:30 in the morning, I called First National Bank and requested to speak with their fraud investigation department. The conversation with bank investigator Linda Patterson was straightforward and professional. I provided documentation of Derek's criminal background, evidence of Amanda's fraudulent use of the car as collateral, recordings of Amanda admitting to the manipulation scheme, and proof that Derek had forged documents claiming to represent me in financial transactions. Linda reviewed my evidence package and agreed that the loan had been compromised by fraudulent activity. Based on the documented evidence, the bank would authorize immediate repossession of the vehicle and begin their own investigation into the predatory loan arrangement with quick cash solutions. Most importantly, they would temporarily halt all collection efforts against me while investigating the fraud claims. The timing was perfect because Derek and Amanda had no idea I possessed evidence of their criminal activity. They were expecting me to eventually cave to family pressure and pay the full amount to avoid further confrontation. Instead, they were about to discover that their carefully constructed scheme was collapsing around them. At 10:15 that morning, the repossession truck arrived at Amanda's apartment complex. I wasn't there to witness it directly, but the phone call I received 20 minutes later told me everything I needed to know. Amanda was screaming hysterically, claiming the repo was illegal and demanding I call the bank to stop it immediately. What she didn't know was that Derek tried to flee when the repo truck appeared. He saw the driver approaching Amanda's Honda with paperwork and immediately ran toward a back exit of the apartment complex. Unfortunately for Derek, 2 police officers were waiting in the parking lot with an arrest warrant for his outstanding fraud charges in Nevada. Derek's arrest was swift and professional. The Nevada authorities had been tracking him for months, and my private investigator's research had provided them with his current location and identification. Derek was taken into custody for fraud, embezzlement, and failure to appear in court on previous charges. The scene at Amanda's apartment was chaotic. Neighbors gathered to watch the drama unfold as Derek was handcuffed and led to a police car, while Amanda screamed about family betrayal and conspiracy. The repo truck driver calmly loaded the Honda onto his flatbed while Amanda demanded to speak with supervisors and threatened legal action. Within 2 hours, I received a call from my mother, Patricia, who had heard about the arrests and repossession from Amanda. Patricia was initially angry with me for calling the police on family until I explained that I hadn't reported Derek directly. His arrest was the result of outstanding warrants for crimes he had committed before ever meeting Amanda. The family meeting that afternoon was unlike anything we had experienced before. I gathered my parents, Amanda, and key extended family members in my parents' living room and presented all the evidence I had collected over the past month. The documentation was overwhelming. Derek's criminal background, his multiple aliases, evidence of his previous fraud victims, and recordings of Amanda admitting to the manipulation scheme. Bob and Patricia sat in stunned silence as I played recordings of Amanda laughing about how easy it was to manipulate soft-touch relatives and bragging about Derek's coaching on psychological manipulation techniques. The revelation that Derek was already married to another woman and had been running identical scams on multiple families simultaneously was devastating. Amanda's initial response was to claim I had fabricated the evidence and hired actors to make fake recordings. This denial crumbled when I showed Derek's arrest photos and the police report detailing his outstanding warrants in Nevada. She couldn't explain away his criminal background or his connection to other fraud victims across multiple states. The most painful moment came when I revealed the extent of Derek's manipulation of our elderly relatives. When Patricia learned that Derek had convinced Elena to give away her Christmas shopping money to help with my fake IRS problems, she broke down completely. The thought that her 83-year-old mother-in-law had been losing sleep and considering selling her wedding ring was unbearable. Extended family members who had lent Amanda money began connecting the dots about their own experiences with Derek's manipulation. Uncle Tommy realized that Derek had specifically researched his financial situation before Amanda approached him for the fake birthday gift money. Cousin Jake understood that Derek had targeted him because of his respect for my work ethic and success. Amanda's breakdown was complete and genuine. When she fully grasped that Derek had been using her as a tool in a sophisticated fraud operation that targeted her own family members, she was devastated. She had believed Derek loved her and was helping her navigate family problems, not realizing she was just another victim in his long-term criminal enterprise. The legal resolution moved quickly once Derek was in custody. The bank's investigation confirmed that Quick Cash Solutions had processed the collateral loan based on forged documents claiming I had authorized the transaction. This meant the $8,000 loan against the car was invalid, saving Amanda from that debt burden entirely. More importantly, the bank agreed to remove me from the car loan based on the documented fraud. Derek's use of forged authorization and Amanda's manipulation under his coaching constituted sufficient grounds for voiding my co-signer obligations. The bank would pursue collection against Amanda alone, but at the significantly reduced principal balance without the accumulated penalties and fees. Derek's arrest also triggered investigations in 3 other states where he had committed similar crimes. Law enforcement agencies shared information about his network of fraud associates, leading to additional arrests and the recovery of money stolen from elderly victims across the Southwest. Amanda's recovery process began immediately. She enrolled in therapy to address the psychological manipulation she had experienced and to develop better judgment about relationships and financial decisions. She also got a second job at a local restaurant to begin earning money for genuine debt repayment to family members who had been victimized. My parents acknowledged their enabling behavior and agreed to attend family counseling to learn healthier ways of supporting Amanda without encouraging manipulation and irresponsibility. Bob and Patricia also committed to complete financial transparency, admitting their own struggles with the second mortgage and accepting help in developing a realistic budget and debt repayment plan. The extended family created new policies around financial requests and emergency assistance. No more secret loans between relatives. No more third-party representation without direct verification, and mandatory cooling-off periods before anyone could make substantial financial commitments to family members in crisis. Most importantly, Amanda publicly apologized to me in front of the entire extended family at our next gathering. She took full responsibility for her lies and manipulation, acknowledging that Derek had exploited her existing selfishness and entitlement rather than creating these problems from nothing. Her apology was specific, detailed, and focused on the harm she had caused rather than the harm she had experienced. 6 months later, Derek was serving a 2-year sentence in federal prison for multiple fraud convictions across 3 states. The victims he had targeted were slowly recovering their financial losses through restitution orders and asset forfeiture proceedings. Amanda was consistently making payments on her remaining debts, both to the bank and to family members. Her transformation wasn't immediate or perfect, but she was genuinely working toward financial responsibility and honest communication with relatives who were cautiously rebuilding trust with her. My relationship with Stephanie strengthened significantly through this crisis. Watching her support me during the investigation and confrontation convinced me that she was the partner I wanted for the long term. She never wavered in her belief in my character, even when Derek's manipulation campaign tried to convince her I was financially irresponsible and selfish. The Christmas celebration that year was the most honest and emotionally satisfying our family had experienced in decades. Amanda worked double shifts at both her jobs to afford genuine gifts for family members, including a heartfelt card to Elena, apologizing for the stress and worry she had caused. Derek was safely locked away in federal prison, unable to manipulate or harm anyone. As I watched Amanda genuinely laugh while helping Patricia wash dishes, both of them working together toward redemption and healing, I reflected on the profound life lesson this experience had taught me. Being family doesn't mean being a doormat. Real love sometimes means letting people face the consequences of their choices rather than enabling destructive behavior through constant rescue missions. When you stop enabling destructive behavior, you give people the chance to grow into better versions of themselves. Amanda's transformation only became possible when Derek's external manipulation was removed, and she had to confront the reality of her own choices. My parents' growth only began when they acknowledged their enabling patterns and committed to healthier boundaries. Sometimes, the family you choose to keep is smaller, but infinitely more genuine. The relatives who believed Derek's lies without speaking to me directly revealed their own character and judgment. The ones who sought truth and supported me through the crisis proved their loyalty and wisdom. Quality relationships matter more than quantity, and authentic family bonds can withstand honest confrontation about difficult truths. Standing in my parents' kitchen that Christmas evening, watching Amanda scrub pots while humming Christmas carols, I felt genuinely proud of our family's capacity for healing and growth. Derek had tried to destroy us through manipulation and greed, but ultimately his criminal behavior had forced us to confront our dysfunction and build something stronger and more honest. The road to recovery wasn't easy or quick, but it led to relationships based on mutual respect rather than exploitation, genuine care rather than manipulation, and honest communication rather than enabling lies. That was worth every moment of pain and confrontation we had endured. Have you ever found yourself being taken advantage of by family members who used your love and loyalty against you? How did you find the courage to set boundaries and demand the respect you deserved? Share your story in the comments below, and remember to like this video if it resonated with your own experiences. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories about overcoming family manipulation and building healthier relationships. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an update, and please share this video with anyone who might be struggling with similar family dynamics. Thank you for listening to my story and supporting this channel. Remember that you deserve relationships built on mutual respect and genuine care, not manipulation and exploitation. Here's to building stronger, more honest families and finding the courage to stand up for ourselves when the people who should protect us choose to harm us instead. May your own family relationships be filled with honesty, respect, and genuine love that doesn't come with hidden price tags or emotional manipulation. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.